Hello, Lose Weight with Macros family. I'm your host, Verona, and you are tuned in to another episode of Lose Weight with Macros, the basics with me, your host. Today's episode is How to Lose Weight with Macros, a guide for women who don't want to see the numbers of calories they've gone over when tracking macros. If you are new here, friends, welcome to the family. I'm a behavior change nutrition coach, and I literally change women's lives who are stuck in the cycle of yo-yo dieting, stress, boredom, and emotional eating. And I help them, and I help you uncover the root causes and build healthy, sustainable habits without the procrastination and fear of counting your calories and facing the reality. If we refuse to face the reality, then we cannot press forward and we cannot grow. And as a coach, I want to see you succeed, which is why I give you opportunities to work with me on a one-to-one, get your custom macros, and also be bosses like you are through this amazing podcast. Now, friends, grab a tea, your water, your matcha, and a notepad and pen, because this one is going to be a juicy one and you're going to need to take notes. All right, friend, you ready? I'm ready. Let's get into it. So, my friends, weight loss, when it comes to weight loss, it's a roller coaster. Now, if you are a thrill seeker, you'll be like, you know what? Roller coasters are a piece of cake. Meh, they're all right. But if you're somebody who's scared of heights and you don't like the feeling of G-force in your face and you are looking hella scary to the point that if you're somebody who wears wigs like myself, but you still look good, okay, you wear wigs, you're having to hold this, you're having to hold on to the roller coaster with one hand and your wig with the other hand so it don't fall off and you don't catch some embarrassment. Believe me, I know some stories. And when it comes to weight loss, there are many ups and downs, just like the toils and turns of roller coasters. But before you know it, on a roller coaster, it is over and done with. However, with weight loss, it's not as quick. Now, when it comes to macros, I love macros. I'm a macros coach. However, I'm not that type of coach who does not fail to see that macros counting can be time consuming for some. So I'm not going to tell you to do something if you know that it doesn't work for you, because I am confident for those it does work for, but I also know, and I will keep it real here, it doesn't work for everybody. Now, if you're somebody who wants to know what macros is, you've never stumbled upon it before, macronutrients are carbs, fats, and proteins, and the nutrients that our bodies need in large doses. So macros is taken from the Greek word macros, which literally translates to large, and then you pair that with the word nutrient, and it just literally means nutrients that we need in our bodies on a day-to-day basis in large quantities. Now, many of us have large quantities of carbohydrates, but we lack on the other nutrients such as proteins and fats. Now, when it comes to macros, you are getting a balance of those all together. Now, many of my clients like macronutrients because of the flexible style. You're not in a rigid style where you have to be told to cut out carbs, to cut out fats, to cut out any of your favorite foods, most importantly, to lose weight. However, it isn't just about eating burgers and fries all day, every day, and then thinking you're still going to lose weight. It is much more about quality foods than it is about just being able to eat your favorite foods. Because let's get it right, friends. You don't need to be under the label of something else to be able to eat your favorite foods. You might not even be tracking any diet right now, but you're still being able to eat your favorite foods. Am I right? Of course I am. So that's the same thing when I'm teaching my clients. You'll be able to do this freely and be in control of your nutrition without having to go to internets or diets to tell you what you can eat, what you can't eat. We are all adults and we're all grown here. My passion is to show you how to do this, empower you how to do this, and equip you with the tools to be able to do it and do it effectively. And no, you don't have to track macros for your entire life. Now, one thing you do with macronutrients is track your food through an app and also weigh your food. Now, this is where it can get over consuming for some people, where they don't like it, the whole aspect of tracking. So if you're somebody who wants to know what macronutrients are, head over to the website vanutritioncoaching.co.uk and download my free guide, 5 minutes to macros. There I give you a synopsis of what macronutrients are, how to use them, and whether or not this is what you want to do by taking the next step to book your custom macros with me via nutritioncoaching.co.uk/custom-macros, where I will calculate your macros based on your needs that you have, whether you want to gain muscle or you want to lose fat and build muscle simultaneously. No, you will not look bulky. I promise you that. Now, that's a quick overview for those of you who are not familiar with macros and you haven't had your numbers calculated, etc. But maybe some of you have had your macros calculated, and some of you might be in the position where when you've overeaten, you don't actually want to look at how many calories you've gone over your macros at all, because you don't feel confident about your ability to keep up with your macros. And I want to say now, I want to empower you, and I want to tell you, and I want to encourage you that that is a real thing. It can happen, especially if you've been in diets before, that when, for example, when I used to do Slimming World, yes, I've done some diets myself, I will never forget how we sat in a circle, and then it promotes the accountability aspect, of course, it promotes the family aspect, but the shame that you face in front of women when you're half naked. Believe me, some women don't wash, and I was one of them that don't do in the shower, because if you shower, then that's going to make you gain more weight. You make sure you go to the toilet and you do a number one and number two, and make sure you come with as little clothes as you possibly can. I remember coming on with a hoodie, and then I had leggings on. Obviously, I had to put on underwear, obviously, but I hadn't gone in the shower. It was so early in the morning. I was in that mindset, and many women in the group actually told me not to do that. And they actually said, I don't shower in the morning. I come straight here. I brush my teeth, of course, straight here, and then I weigh, because that means I weigh as little as possible. Then I can go and pick out later. However, that's a full sense of family. This episode isn't about that, but it's a full sense of family, because if you don't happen to lose weight that particular week, everybody is going to know about it, and you feel hella embarrassed in as little clothes as you can, little clothes as you have, men and women, but predominantly women. Better luck next time, love. Oh, you didn't lose a pound this week, did you? You gained 5. You haven't maintained, you've gained. And no offense to people who do speak like that, but the area that I was in, predominantly that's how they spoke. And that made me feel so embarrassed, to the point I never went back. And it's all good when they're clapping and saying, wow, we've got the winner of the week this week, we've got slimmer of the week this week, she lost 5 pounds, etc., etc. 5 pounds of what? Water weight? Oh yeah, but they don't tell you that. They also don't tell you that the scale is taken into account that. So they're praising you when you've lost 5 pounds, but when you seemingly gain through things that are not your fault, when you might not have had a chance to go and do a doo-doo yet, they don't tell you that these things, because they don't know. They absolutely don't know. They're following a model that they've been taught to, and then they're teaching you effectively. They're just repeating these habits that are keeping you stuck in your weight gain, and they keep you attached to this method. Now, if this has worked for some people, fantastic. I'm not coming against it like that. I'm coming against the model that diets tend to follow that look like this. They praise you when you lose, but they make you feel like garbage when you don't lose. And that is a problem. And that spills over, that mindset and that thought and pattern and how we see ourselves, it spills over into macro tracking now, when you're trying to do something else that isn't diet related at all. And then you have your confidence, you don't have any. And so because of that historic dieting that you've been through, when they constantly tell you that you're a failure, they constantly paint that image to you to tell you that you're a failure because you haven't lost 5 pounds. It is damaging to you as a woman. It's damaging to your confidence. And you bring that same thing to something else, hoping desperately that this new thing will help you find that confidence again. Now, if you're in that stage and you want to be able to learn how to rebuild your confidence again, yes, we focus on that in macros coaching, and we focus on the FatLoss with the group coaching aspect. So in the new year, you'll have an opportunity to sign up for that. But that is only 20 women at this moment in time. And I've kept it that small so that we can be able to have as much interaction with one another. And who knows, I might reduce it to 15 women to make sure that there is that level of support in there enough for the group, because some of you might feel overwhelmed at 2 larger groups. One person might be talking too much and you feel like, oh, I can never be heard. Please let everybody have a chance to speak, and I will encourage you to speak and to share, because your voice matters just as anybody else's in the group. And so when you're coming from this diet, the history of diets now, and you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel confident to keep up with your ability with your macros, that actually matters, because it ends up making you feel like you're being held back by this method of eating. And actually, it might not actually be macros. It can be for some. Let's not get it twisted. And most people, if you have been diagnosed or you don't know if you have an eating disorder, this is not for you. In my professional opinion, I would never take on any client, not because I don't want to work with you, but I wouldn't take you on if you say that you've had an emotional eating disorder before. And I will ask that. I'll ask those type of questions, and it's for you to say yes. And when we're having that conversation, specifically when it's one-to-one nutrition coaching, I am not qualified to deal with eating disorders. Dietitians are. And that's when we as coaches will source you out. A coach who doesn't outsource people or refer people on to coaches who are specialized in these areas is going to be doing you a disservice. And that's not the type of coach that I am. So when you are coming off this roller coaster, there are all these type of things to deal with and to manage. And some of you might have come from that, and now you might be saying tracking is the one thing that you know you need to do, but you have a hard time doing it. And that's understandable, especially if you've come from a sketchy past of dieting. I've been there myself. Now, when it comes to you tracking, you start to go on an even keel. You start to see progress, just like my progress when I was doing Slimming World. And this is my experience. This is nothing, obviously I'm not affiliated to Slimming World. This is my personal experience, and I've heard other people share the same or similar experiences also. And it's not just Slimming World, it's other diets that mimic the same pattern of behavior. So you then get to the point where you start tracking your macros. You then get to the point where you're fine as long as you start to eat healthy food or you start to eat a certain type of food. And this is what happens when foods are categorized even in containers, or a diet categorizes or says that you can have allowed foods or not allowed foods, good foods or bad foods. So as long as you're eating those types of foods, then you're okay. Still kind of living within that guideline of those types of foods. And it's all learned behavior. All of these behaviors can be undone. All of these habits can be broken. I promise you that, and I assure you that. And so when you're starting to come off from that now, one thing that you might start to do is, if you start to label food as good or bad and you feel like you've had a bad food, then you might not track that, especially if that food is a bad food, quote unquote bad food, or it's ridiculously high in calories. One of my clients actually shared with me when they actually first started doing macro tracking, she actually fell into this. She'd actually put into My Fitness Pal app, which is what I use, and I can recommend others for those who are not in the position to get that app. But when she tracked the food, she actually ate from a restaurant that's well known over here and in the UK, over here and in the US, and I think worldwide there's other, anyway, a well-known burger food chain. And she was she was mortified when she tracked it, it was over 1,000 calories, and she was astounded as how she actually ate 1,000 calories in one meal, and then the end of the day she ate 3,500 calories. And in fact, she was not only flabbergasted, but she didn't believe it. And that's what you tend to do if you're tracking your macros, especially if it's that high calories, you refuse to track it. And so when you know that you're in that level, and you know that being accountable is much better than the foods that you eat, these are the things that you start to do when you're trying to change these habits. And so if you're somebody in this place where, like my clients, and you are struggling with this, I'm giving you some tips today that are practical, that will help you when it comes to it. Now, the first thing is, before we talk about consistency, before we talk about anything like that, one of the things is being realistic. And that is something that I always start off with. One-to-one coaching and focus on the FatLoss, we start off with goals. We start off with realistic goals that you can actually do. How much weight loss can you expect from tracking your macros? How quickly will it happen for you based on your personal lifestyles? What's going on for you? And how much weight loss can you really experience? Now, in season 2, I had, actually we're in season 4 now. So over in season 3, did an episode talking about how much weight loss you can expect to lose in 90 days. And that might not be what you think it will be, because if you're coming to the episode thinking, right, I've got 90 days, this is exactly how many pounds of fat I'm going to lose, you're going to be disappointed, because I'll tell you now, I don't give you a number of pounds that you're going to lose. I will never do that, and I cannot do that. I can give you a realistic time frame of how much you can lose, but it's not a definite that you will lose. And that's the difference. If you come with that expectation, believe me, it's going to get disappointed. So that's why it's important to be realistic about how much weight loss you can lose and how sustainably you can use it, because there's lots of other things, i.e. the diet history, that's attached, which is why when we're working on a one-to-one, we're going through that extensively. So the next thing is to not take it personally if you overshoot your macros. It's not about counting calories. Now, in Focus on the Fat Loss, we go over the quality of calories, the calories themselves, and all of those things. It is about having a plan that works for you and sticking to that plan that you can actually do. Now, you're being consistent doesn't mean that I'm tracking sacrilegiously and I'm tracking so excessively tracking I've got to do this, I've got to do that. That's not what consistency is. Now, if you are tracking consistently, then there are going to be times where you are not going to track 100% of your macros. So the last thing that I'm going to land on this episode is, don't stress yourself out by trying to get everything perfect 100% of the time in the beginning, because that is unrealistic. You're going to put too much pressure on yourself, and you're going to give up yourself because you're not being able to meet the goals that are unrealistic that you're putting on yourself. You're the only person that's putting that pressure on yourself. It's not going to come from me, it's yourself. Not to blame you, but we're talking honest here. If you want honesty, you're in the right place for it. You're the only one putting pressure on yourself. It could come from somebody else, it could come from your doctor, but you're the one that's taking on that pressure and trying to live up to those people's expectations. Instead of that, you have to come from doing it yourself. Who are you doing this for? In fact, that's one of the questions in the goal session. Who are you doing this for? Why are you doing it? If you don't like being asked these tough questions, behavior change coaching isn't for you. And that is important to understand. It's important to understand and try to focus on where you can be consistent. Tracking your macros for 3 days a week when we first start, that's consistency. but it can be done. That isn't restrictive. But my friends, that's all we got time for. I can't wait to catch you in the next one. Hey friend, you made it to the end of the episode. What was your biggest takeaway from today's episode? Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review over on iTunes. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about today's episode, or you need help, then you can contact me over on Instagram at VA Nutrition Coaching Podcast, or email me support@vanutritioncoaching.co.uk, or you can head over to the Facebook page VA Nutrition Coaching Podcast. It helps us reach even more women who are fed up of dieting, don't know how to lose weight, they're frustrated with following Sally's results and they're not getting any of their own, and they just finally want to shed some pounds and do it in a way that they can sustain and they can enjoy. But my friends, that's a wrap for today's episode. I can't wait to catch you on the next one. Until then, friends, stay healthy, stay blessed, and remember, if you haven't already downloaded your 5-ingredient recipe pack, you can go to the website vanutritioncoaching.co.uk/recipes and download your 5-ingredient recipe pack. Who said healthy eating was boring? See you next time, friend.